Okay, first grade. It is so good to be back with you. You may be wondering why you're not seeing a video today. Your video is the cover of the book because I am not exactly what we would call camera ready this week. And so, because I'm not, you're just going to listen to my voice. Because if I showed you my face, let's be real. You'd be more scared than you are of this vampire Dracula kind of kiddo going on here on the front cover of the book. So we'll have you just look at that. So we're going to read chapter 12, and this is where they have discovered the giant hole in the teacher's lounge that's filled with candy. Now, you might be wondering if the teacher's lounge at Avery is filled with candy. It's not. We have a vending machine. We have to put money in it, so it's not like there's just wall-to-wall candy. It would be nice though, right? Chapter 12. That's what it looked like. Wall-to-wall candy. Big piles of candy, the floor covered with candy. All kinds, all colors, all wrapped. A giant trick-or-treat supply for the rest of your life. Milk Duds, Sugar Babies, Pez, Milky Way, Snickers, Dum Dums, Three Musketeers, Hershey's Bars, Swedish Fish, Jujubes, Kit Kats, Twizzlers, Crunch Bars, Twix, Tootsie Rolls, Mounds Bars, Starburst, Smarties, Reese's Pieces, M&Ms, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Payday Bars, Almond Joy, Baby Ruth, Fifth Avenue, Mr. Goodbar, Rolos, Butterfingers, Caramello, Candy, Dots, Hershey's Kisses, Score Bars, Licorice Whips, Heath Bars, Raisinets, Mallow Cups, Charleston Chew, Chunkies, Clark Bars, Crackle, Whoppers, Sugar Daddies, O. Henry, Bit of Honey, Dove Bar, Goobers, Snow Caps, Junior Mints. Did you hear your favorite in there? I did. We had all come down the kindergarten slide, even Albert in his laundry basket and Luella holding Howard, so it was pretty crowded in the boiler room with all of us and all the missing kids. By the way, did you know we have a boiler room at Avery? I can guarantee you there's no candy in there either. Kind of just smells funny. There's a washing machine and a boiler. That's about it. Anybody who had pockets in their costume was stuffing them with candy, and anybody who didn't was welcome, Albert said, to borrow part of his laundry basket. That's really nice of you, Albert, I said. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do, he said. If I took all the candy for myself, I'd have to go to a camp again this summer. I wish I had Howard's stroller, Luella said. It has a big pocket at the back, and we could fill it up, she sighed. I guess pilgrims don't have pockets. Neither do belly dancers, I said, but I didn't really care. It was almost enough just to be there in a sea of candy. Of course, you had to wonder where it all came from, but it was a lot easier to figure out where it didn't come from, which would be the PTA or Mr. Crabtree or the mayor or, this was Charlie's idea, some kind of Halloween tooth fairy. I guess that sounded good to the first graders because when Mr. Crabtree showed up and yelled, "Where did all of this come from?" Missy Reed told him that it came from the Halloween tooth fairy. It was a good thing Missy was a first grader and cute because Mr. Crabtree's ears turned red at the top the way they had when Ollie Herdman wrote the dirty words on Rhoda Gallagher's turtle. This was a lot worse than that, though, and Mr. Crabtree's ears were a lot redder. After all, Rhoda could just pick up her turtle and get it out of sight, and then Mr. Crabtree could pretend that there wasn't even any turtle in the first place, with or without dirty words. But there were a lot of missing kids, and the missing kindergarten slide, and a room full of candy that had to be missing from somewhere, and Mr. Crabtree didn't know how to explain it or who to blame. Of course, neither did anyone else. Who to blame had never been a problem at Woodrow Wilson School. When something happened, you just looked around for a herdman. But on Halloween night at Woodrow Wilson School, there weren't any herdmans around. Mr. Crabtree could have blamed Alice for the blackout, but by the time Alice lit herself up, there were already kids missing, and the boiler room was already full of candy. When Mr. Crabtree canceled the rest of the Halloween party, before anything else happened, he said, the PTA committee got stuck with 14 dozen donuts, so they blamed Mr. Crabtree for that. And Mrs. Windlekin blamed the Ohio Light and Power Company for what she called Alice's brush with death, but nobody else got blamed for anything. The police chief took charge of the candy in case it turned out to be stolen. That stuck for just a second, and so I'm going to go back and reread this paragraph because I'm not exactly sure where I stopped, and I want you to be able to hear it all, so I'm probably repeating a little bit. When Mr. Crabtree canceled the rest of the Halloween party, before anything else happened, he said, the PTA committee got stuck with 14 dozen donuts, so they blamed Mr. Crabtree for that, and Mrs. Windlekin blamed the Ohio Light and Power Company for what she called Alice's brush with death, but nobody else got blamed for anything. The police chief took charge of the candy in case it turned out to be stolen. but he said he couldn't haul it off to the police station, and Mr. Crabtree said he couldn't leave it in the boiler room. So it all ended up where Halloween candy is supposed to end up, with the kids. The manager of the supermarket said he would never stock that much candy. You stock that much candy, he said, you'll have stale candy. He was right, because that's what we had, stale candy. But you can still count stale candy. You can make piles of stale candy and trade for your favorite kinds. You can eat stale candy if you want to, and your mother lets you, and you don't have braces. Stale isn't very important at Halloween. What it's important at Halloween is amount. How many, how much, and we had more candy that Halloween than ever before. Or ever again, probably. Never again at Woodrow Wilson School, for sure. That's what Mr. Crabtree said when the PTA committee wanted to store all the cardboard bats and fake cobwebs and witch hats and ghost sheets for next year. No next year, he said. Never again. This meant that we could go back to Halloween as usual, which was what we all really wanted in the first place. Why, my mother said, why do you want to run all over the neighborhood in the dark and try to keep your costume together and hang on to your trick-or-treat sack and your flashlight and then, on top of everything else, stay away from the Herdmans? Why? Yes, Charlie said after a second. Yes, what? Mother said. All that. Even the Herdmans, he shrugged. That's what Halloween's supposed to be. Good for you, Charlie, I thought, to know that. After all, once you go down a slide into a room full of candy, you might forget what an ordinary Halloween is like. My father was still trying to get it all straight. You went down a slide into the boiler room, he said. How did you happen to do that? We just followed Boomer, Charlie said. In his gorilla suit, Cecil added. Only I knew it wasn't Boomer. Okay, guys, we're going to find out who is in that gorilla suit tomorrow.